I'm Cody Horton. I want to welcome you all to the webinar that we have today. We've got a good friend of mine, Tarsha McMormick, and I really feel fortunate that Tarsha is actually joining us today because she has a very busy schedule as the head of D&I. I'll let her talk a little bit about her background, but Tarsha, it's an honor to have you here with us to share a lot of your insight and wisdom. And I just wanted to toss it over to you and let you talk a little bit about your background.
Thank you for having me, Cody. And I'm doing this just because it's you. But I am always happy and excited to talk about diversity and inclusion. So I was happy to hear that you were doing a webinar on this topic. So again, I'm Tarsha McMormick. I am the head of diversity and inclusion for ThoughtWorks. We are a global IT consulting company, and I've been with them for I think close to 22 years now. I can't track all of the time, but I have been in the people space that entire time, from recruiting to HR manager, benefits manager, HR business partner. For the last 5 or 6 years now, I've focused on diversity and inclusion.
Well, that's just amazing. I know you've got some phenomenal work that you've done. I think back to when we worked together and some of the challenges that we worked through and some of the issues that we worked through. I'm Cody Horton, Managing Director for Diverse Recruiting Experts. We help companies find diverse sales leaders and hire them. I've been doing this work for a couple of decades now, and I'm really thrilled to have Tarsha share her insight with you. Tarsha, I know some of the things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about just getting beyond the public statement. I know you're going to share some things that leaders can do to take it to the next level. I believe you're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and how that's impacting people. And then ultimately, we want to have people walk away knowing what's their individual responsibility and what things can they do. And we'll talk a little bit about just the impact of training, right? Because you hear everybody say, hey, let's do the training, and then how that training is impacting your workforce. But I wanted to start by just setting the stage, Tarsha, and because we're going to hear all kinds of language, and just have you give us a level set on some of the terms that people can expect to hear as they start and continue their D&I journeys.
Okay, sounds great. And I know that may sound a bit rudimentary for some, but there are a lot of people out there who are really just starting to pay more attention to diversity and inclusion. And so some of the terminology may be a little foreign to them. They may have heard the term, but not exactly sure how that applies to the workplace. So that's a great starting point. So let's talk a little bit about diversity. So diversity is just the basic numbers, of your workforce. If you think about the different social identities that people have, some of the more popular ones are race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation and identity, marital status. But diversity also includes culture, your geographical location, your socioeconomic status, education, veteran status. All of those are different social identities that make up diversity. Now, when we talk about inclusion is the conscious choice that we make to consider all of the social identities in the workforce. So let's use an example of dietary needs. If every month you hold a staff meeting and you don't consider people who may be vegetarian or vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, or in my case, gluten and dairy-free, then you aren't really being inclusive. So there are two ways to do that. Either you can proactively order meals that everyone can eat, or you ask people, do you have any dietary restrictions? And then you order a special meal for them. So that's what inclusion looks like. And then you hear a lot of people talking about belonging now as well. And that's really when your employees feel like they're valued, they're heard, they're supported. And when you proactively do things to include them and create an inclusive environment, that's when your employees feel that sense of belonging.
Yeah, no, that is I mean, I really appreciate you doing that level set. Certainly, we did a previous webinar where we talked about racism and bias and all those things. And so I think while some people may think it's the basics, you need to have that common understanding of what we're talking about, just because words matter and the meaning of words matter. So I really appreciate you sharing that.